Thank you for joining us on the Winning at Selling podcast. I'm Bill Hellkamp of Reach Development Systems, and with me is Professor Scott Plum of the Minnesota Sales Institute.
Often unconscious human behavior is grounded in the need for validation or vindication from others. We have a desire for approval of our current behavior or a yearning of clemency for our past discretions. Both can limit your progress and development. Remember, you're in the circle of trust as Bill and I discuss validation or vindication and other interesting ideas on episode 541 of the Winning at Selling podcast.
All right, Scott. Well, this is should be a good talk on validation or vindication.
Yeah, I just kind of made it up.
You just made it up. Top of his head. Here we go, folks.
That's just what I was thinking of right now.
We're going raw. We're going raw. All right. But before we start that, we're into the Theory of Accountability book, part 2. We're going to finish up part 2, chapters 10, 11, and 12. And these were all fairly short chapters, just a few pages. So hopefully those of you that are in the book club are keeping up with us, not just listening to us. Because there's so much in this book. It really is good. I thought about, well, I'll talk about this when we talk about chapter 11, but chapter 10 is called Living Your Purpose, means creating the future. And what I thought about as I was reading this is that we have the ability to create our own future, and we decide what to do with it. And this is why I get so upset at people who tell others that they're trapped by their color or their age or whatever. And we're going to get into excusitis, but I think the real challenge is other people tell people they're not good at things, tell them they can't win and they can't have a future. And I think that's really sad. What I thought about, a friend of mine talks about everything beginning with the vision. And even before the blueprint is written up, a building starts with a dream. If I'm going to have a house, and we built our new house, we didn't even think about blueprints. We thought about what kind of house do we want to live in. And then those dreams, those visions we had came to fruition in the home that we live in. So I think your business, your future is your ability to create that future.
Right. I remember the story when somebody asked a bricklayer, "What are you doing?" And they said, "Well, I'm a bricklayer. I'm laying bricks." And then they asked another person, "What are you doing?" They said, "I'm building a wall." And then they ask another person, "What are you doing?" And they said, "I'm building a cathedral."
Mm-hmm.
And you think about the activities that all of our salespeople do. What is the ultimate goal of that? How do you deliver value to other people? How do you change other people's lives? And that's how you can describe the role that you have or the task that you have is what is the outcome? What is the benefit? What is the value of it?
And that's that purpose, right?
Yeah. And that vision and the purpose of it. I really liked a couple of his call out points in this particular chapter. He said, at any given moment, we are creating the future that we are about to experience. And boy, isn't that living with intention and purpose? I mean, we're creating the future that we are about to experience. And your future can be something you design, not by what happens by default.
Well, and so many people live their life by default. I remember the movie Rudy, which I really thought was a good movie. And everyone was saying, go work in the mills. It's a great job. Go work in the mills. And he had a bigger dream. And he upset his father because his father then felt, well, working in the mill isn't good enough for you. But his son had a dream. And instead of helping him promote that dream, he tried to destroy that dream. And I think we do that sometimes in our jealousy. I think we have to really be careful of the people we're around, that we encourage them in those goals and dreams that they have. Because as your bricklayer story tells it, we can have a greater purpose if we envision it, even while we're making phone calls. If we don't believe that the product or service we're selling is going to help somebody, go find a different product or service.
Right.
Because you got to have a purpose that is greater than just another phone call, another appointment, another, $10,000 deal or whatever it is.
Right. I remember Steve Kloida saying, you have a cure for cancer. Your job as a salesperson is to go out and find somebody with cancer and deliver the solution. That's how valuable your solution is you save people's lives because you've got a cure for cancer.
Whatever that cure is, right? It may not save their lives, but it may save something else for them. So chapter 11 is called Living Your Purpose. Means recognizing excuses and moving beyond them. You mentioned excusitis last week. And I had to look it up, what book that was from. That's from The Magic of Thinking Big by Dr. David Schwartz. I think we've read that for our book club. And that is a terrific book. He coined that 50 years ago, more than 50 years ago. He wrote that book. And I was thinking, what's your favorite excuse, Scott?
Yeah. Well, it's probably I'm busy.
Busy. I'm busy. That's right.
I'm too busy.
That's right. Too busy to do the right thing. I think sometimes it was funny. I used to think I was too young. Now I get to think I'm too old. So, and I don't remember when the date changed.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. But the excuses are just as good, whether you're too young or too old. And what they say is whatever your excuse is, that's fine. Live with it until it buries you.
Right.
Because, how heavy that phone is could be your excuse.
Yeah. And it's amazing how we can just justify that. I always like to start off as a training session with a group of salespeople for the first time. And I say, let's finish this sentence. I could sell more if only I could ... And, the safe one is, well, if I had more time, I could sell more. And I said, really, what is the goal? What is your goal every single day? Well, I mean, and what we have is no goal, no vision, and we become busy doing activities, but we don't know what we're in charge of or what we want to accomplish. So we just react to whatever goes on around us.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why it's so important to make goals at the beginning of every single day and say, here's what's going to happen, not what happened. And at the end of the day, when we look at our goals, did we achieve what we wanted to, or do we react and let other things happen to us?
Well, yeah, even just by not writing down a list of what we want to accomplish in a day, even if that list throws us into too many different areas, I think at least having the list allows us to move to the next productive thing. Sometimes I find I finish something productive. I'm like, oh, what do I do now? And if I have written down my list, well, I just go to my list and go, okay, I'll make that phone call. I'll send that email. But in the middle of the day, in the middle of all the distractions, you can really lose your purpose. And then you start making excuses, because those excuses will fill your time if you allow them to.
Right. And look at that list. And every time you check something off, you can look at the end of the day going, wow, I got a lot of stuff done.
Yeah. I feel like I accomplished something.
Yeah.
I scratch them out. So
yeah,
I will just check them off. Check them off means they're still there. I liked his quote in here. The only antidote to excuses is to refocus with intensity on those things you can control in your life that connect to your purpose.
Yeah, that's a great
quote. Go back
to
those things you can control, and that's frustration, right? Is churning on the things we can't do anything about, or we churn on something and don't do anything about it because we're afraid, and so we just let that thing churn up our guts, and it's not good for us. So focus on the things you can control in your life that connect to your purpose.
I like the line that he wrote is unconscious action is typically what is already happening. And remember when we had Ben Utek on the show, and he's the culture guy from the Baltimore, it
was the Colts at the time, but now the Ravens. Yeah.
Raven. Yeah.
That's the Indianapolis Colts, but
Indianapolis. I'm not a big football fan, but anyway, he says culture is either defined by default or defined. I mean, and too often it's just by default, and we can't just let default happen, because that's unconscious action is typically what's already happening by default.
Well, that's right. The unconscious stuff is easy. It's the intentional stuff that's difficult. Right. That's what we have to change. Let's go into chapter 12. Put what you have learned about the E in E equals MC squared into practice, and that is the experience. And what he really does is he likes to do these activities. So he takes you through a series, an exercise with a series of questions on different experiences. How do you want your life to be? And tries to broaden your mind about what your life wants to be. And as I was listening to these or reading through these, I thought, how powerful is association?
So true.
Association, the people that you spend time with will either broaden your outlook or shrink it down. And as they say, your future is defined by the 6 people you see all the time. Mm-hmm. And are those people broadening your horizons? Are they, spend time with wealthy people. They'll make you think about a lot more possibilities than spending time with people who are broke. We're always talking about how tough it is to get with money. You talk about our misconceptions about money all the time.
Yeah.
And those misconceptions, money's hard to get, and only the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. All these sayings that we have, limit us, and they limit the experience we feel we deserve and we can have. And until you feel you deserve a good experience, you're going to limit yourself.
Right. I mean, we have to believe that we deserve a better life. And if we don't believe we deserve a better life, then tomorrow's going to be the same as it was yesterday, unless we do something different today.
That's right.
And that's living, on purpose, with a purpose, for purpose. And he talks a little bit more about that too.
Well, and that's a summary then of part 2, creating the experience. That's the big E. And so I have a feeling next week, well, not next week because we have a guest, but the week after next, we're going to start talking about the M in E equals MC squared. So let's look forward to that.
Yeah, stay tuned. So our topic of today's show is validation or vindication. And I think that the biggest challenge that salespeople experience when they're talking with a prospect is a high need for approval or validation. They've heard the saying, people like to do business with people that they like that are like them. And this is not false. However, it falls short of the ultimate goal. Prospects want to do business with people they respect, which means you must move past being liked. When you have a need to be liked and a prospect becomes upset, you pause, not talking, not taking the prospect to an emotional level where the decisions are made, and giving them a better solution, which is right around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
Another human need is that we experience a sense of vindication for our past discretions. We want to be forgiven of our past mistakes, also a sign of weakness. We can only forgive ourselves. Only we can do that.
Yeah.
And when we have this validation and vindication, who's determining our behavior? And then consequently, who's determining the outcome? And salespeople are leaders, sales leaders in change.
Okay,
and
so let me understand what you're saying here, because I can get lost in kind of these big words, and I don't like words that start with V because it's very late in the alphabet. The only worst words are the ones that start with Z, and so I don't like those either. But vindication or valid. So what you're saying is that we have this need for validation. We want people to like us, and that gets in our way of really working with the customers, prospects, and then this need for vindication. That we never want to make a mistake, because then we never want to have to make an error, because we need this validation or this vindication. We want to be forgiven, right? So we tend not to do the things we need to do because of this need for approval and this desire to be liked.
Right. I mean, the validation, and how do salespeople exercise the need for validation? Is they like to demonstrate how much they know to a prospect.
Oh my gosh.
So they get validated by wow, you really know a lot, the prospect says. I can really tell you've been doing this a long time. You do a great job. And all of a sudden, the salesperson is just spewing out all the information. They don't understand the need. They don't understand the problem. They don't understand the goal.
I asked one question, Scott. I've got the needs down pat now.
Huh?
He said he needed something. I said, what do you need? And he told me, so I did discovery.
Right.
We're ready to rock and roll, and I'll start telling them everything I know.
And they get validated.
Yep.
And think about, we've all heard the saying, people buy emotionally, they justify it intellectually. When a prospect gets upset emotionally, they're frustrated with their current situation. They're talking with somebody who can make a change. That prospect has to go through their mind going, am I willing to go through a change right now? Do I like this person, or do I respect this person? Can I count on this person to take me through this change or not? Maybe I understand that I have a problem. I need a solution, but I don't trust this person because they're telling me everything that I want to hear. They're not challenging me on some of the consequences of inaction, or giving me options that I need to consider when I make a change, so that I have enough information to make the best solution possible to apply the best outcome that I want too.
Yeah, I don't know if we really say I don't trust this person because they haven't challenged me. I think there's something deeper down, don't you? It's like they never really got to the core of the issue. And so it's not as much a trust issue, I think, maybe as we're not ready to buy because they haven't gotten us to the emotional level that we need to get to. We haven't really gotten to the crux of the issue. They're dealing at a very surface level with their questions. And so my answers are at a very surface level rather than really getting down to the guts of what's getting screwed up around here.
Yeah. I mean, that's a very good perspective on it.
I mean, $500,000 decision, I better get some emotion going in it, or they're not going to do anything about it.
Well, it's the end of the month. I got to make my quota.
I'll cut the price then.
I mean, I need the commission check. I got to pay rent.
Well, my boss said I got to get another deal today because it's, the end of the month.
Or my spouse is getting on my case. I got to do something here.
Close it. Close the deal.
Yeah. We all have reasons to justify our behavior. And, in this topic of vindication and validation, let me propose a question: is whose approval do you seek? As salespeople, as individuals, whose approval do you seek? And I ask this question when I'm interviewing salespeople, and it's just really interesting, the answers that I get. And most times it's my spouse or my children. And that's not a bad answer. But sometimes your spouse or children can be wrong. And if we're seeking their approval, are we growing in the best way possible? And for me, my approval is in God, and it's Psalms 118, verse 8, better take refuge and trust in any man. And I want to seek a pleasing life according to God, and all of my actions, I want God to look down on me and say, well done, faithful and loyal servant. That's whose approval I seek. Now, that doesn't mean that
that's because you don't have a wife.
That's true. I don't.
If you had a wife, you'd know why they're answering. I seek my wife's approval. But
right.
I go to God, but and my wife, is there too. So
that's true too. Yeah. and another question is, do you want to be?
I'm not advising you to get a wife, by the way.
No, I'm in search of. But do you want to be liked, or do you want to be respected? And too often we just fall short and want to be liked, and that's not always the right answer. So on the other side is the vindication. I mean, who can grant you clemency? I mean, who can forgive you of all of your past discretions? And a lot of times, people say, well, that's in the past. Let's just forget about that and move forward. No, I think we need to reflect on it. We need to look at the situation and really ask ourselves, if I had a chance to do it over again, what would I do different?
Mm-hmm.
And what would I do better? Some different is not always better. And we need to concentrate on growth is doing something better. We talked a little bit about comparison earlier in the show, and I heard a great line. I think it was Dr. Jordan Peterson said, when you are comparing yourself to another person, you're always coming in second. And I mean, it's wow. And then another line he said is, if you're going to fall into the trap of comparison, compare yourself to the person you were yesterday. Are you?
I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah,
too often when we compare ourselves to others, we compare all their best features.
Oh, it's so true.
All of our worst. And we do that because we know all the mistakes we make. And that is always a challenge for us. We need to be able to look at ourselves as other people look at us. Every once in a while, I like to advise people to do a 360, do a 360 analysis. And that means interview or get some kind of a survey for the people around you, the people that work for you, the people whom you work for, your peers in an organization, maybe even your spouse, and say, tell me what my strengths are and tell me what my weaknesses are. And you're going to get, you look for those things where you're seeing repeated over and over, either in strengths or weaknesses, and really get a good validation for yourself of where you are and where you need to go. And I think those things can be very powerful.
Right. It's like, you are here, the map of the mall. You are here. Where do you want to go?
That's right. And many of us don't even know where we are.
Yeah.
I'm lost, but I'm making good time, Scott. So.
Yeah, exactly. I've cut this board twice and it's still too short.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So we really need to look to where we want to go. And I think this goes back to the book that we're reading, which is a great combination for both the top and bottom of this half hour. But if we don't know what experience we want to have, if we don't decide what our purpose is, all these great decisions we have to make are those future-oriented decisions. If you've ever seen the time management quadrant, it's quadrant 2, the not urgent but important, deciding who I am, who I want to be, and where I want to go, what experience I want to have in life. These are crucial. They're not just important, they're crucial to your future. And if you don't have a good vision for your future, then someone else is going to be controlling your vision.
Oh, exactly. I have to give credit to Ron Lehman, who gave me that quote. I've cut this board twice and it's still too short. He's a listener, and I know that he's listening going, hey, professor, are you going to give me credit for that or not? There you have it,
I have such a bad memory. I forget where I've stolen all my material. But I can guarantee everyone I stole it from a book probably that I read somewhere.
Good research.
That's right. Research. Yeah.
Yeah. Research and development is.
Well, there's an old saying, right? The first time you say it, I say, as Ron Lehman told me.
Yeah.
The second time I steal it, I say, as I've always heard. And the third time I steal it, it's as I've always said. So,
yes. Oh, so true.
So as you've always said, Scott.
That's always the process. So think about, whose approval do you seek? And to be able to live your life in a way where you are doing what's authentic in your personality and your behavior and your mindset, and to be able to be transparent in doing that, and knowing that you make a difference in other people's lives based on what you do. And then think about, vindication is, how am I going to be forgiven of all my past clemencies, and who can release me from being in the box? And sometimes we trap ourselves being in the box, and we just need to forgive ourselves. I think that, we really live in 3 time zones. We live in the past with regret. And we need to ask for reconciliation. We need to be able to forgive ourselves. We live in the future with anxiety, and there's medication for that, so we can all calm down. But we need to live today.
Scott's advising you get medicated, folks.
Yeah. But today is the day that can make the difference in the future. And that's what the book is talking about is, at any given moment, we are creating the future that we are about to experience. And this is what I really love about this accountability book, is about the experiences that we create and the interactions that we have with other people, and how we live a life of integrity through the actions that we demonstrate every single day. And with those actions, we form a reputation, and that's who we are.
Yeah, I was thinking as you were talking about living in the past, I have a good friend of mine. He's a great guy. And he suffered through Vietnam. He has some things he carries. And the challenge I see is that he always brings them up.
Oh, yeah.
He's always talking about it. He's always living back there. He's always regretting. And if God gave me any benefit in life, is he gave me a lousy memory.
Oh, yeah.
I just don't remember the past. Maybe I go blithely on into the future, but to over remember the past and carry the weight around of 60 years is an awful burden. This is Christmas time that we're doing this. Think about Marley's ghost, right? I wear the change I forged in life. And some people are carrying those chains around right now, just dragging all that crap around forever, that they remember something their dad said to them when they were 7, and they're still carrying that, dragging that chain around. Geez, forget it. Our parents were fallible fools who were doing their best to practice on us, and we did the same thing to our kids, and we hope that we can forgive. I think the best way to get clemency, Scott, is to start forgiving others.
Right.
And let it go. Let it go and move forward, because just quit dragging this crap around.
Yeah, that's very good advice, Bill, especially with family members during the holiday season as you get together with them.
Yep. They're not who they were when they were 12. Okay.
Right.
So if you're mad at your brother because of something he said to you when you were 12 years old, you might just want to give that up and grow up a little bit.
Yeah, I'm grateful that none of my siblings listen to the show, because they would remind me of that at Christmas based on the experiences in Thanksgiving.
That's right.
They don't listen, so it's okay.
That's right.
So think about vindication and validation in your actions. Ask yourself, whose approval do you seek? Do you want to be liked, or do you want to be respected? And forgive yourself for the past. Make a difference, and just apologize when you need to apologize, and move forward. And like Bill said, there are some people that just carry it forward all the time. My father was in Vietnam, but he was not in the normal Vietnam War. He did a lot of covert operations, and he does not want to talk about any of his time of his life during that history. And when it's coming time for him to be in some assisted care living, he does not want to go to a VA. care center because he doesn't want to talk about war stories, because he doesn't want to continue to drag that forward. And he's never shared any stories about his life during covert operations during the Vietnam War. And I just can't imagine the history and the agony that he goes through with some of the experiences that he had.
Yep.
So forgive yourself.
All right, as we wrap up today, our golden nugget, this is from Napoleon Hill. We may have used this one before, but I thought it was apt for the book that we're reading. Whatever your mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Conceive, believe before you achieve. So get that blueprint out, figure out what you want your life to look like, and start working toward that.
Yeah, and what an awesome book, Think and Grow Rich. If you haven't read it, I'm amazed how many people have not read that book. It's probably the most powerful self-development book that I have ever read is Think and Grow Rich.
One of the top 5 originals.
Yeah. So everything we talked about is going to be at winningatselling.com. This is episode 541.
Next week, no book club, because we'll have a guest, Brent Widman, and he has got a great story about door-to-door sales. He grew up in selling door-to-door in the South. And so we're looking for some great stories and some great advice on how to be a more successful salesperson. Please subscribe and share the podcast with your colleagues and on your social media. Go out and get better one skill at a time.
Joyful selling.